In the quiet town of Willowbrook, nestled among the rolling hills of New England, there existed an old, ramshackle mansion known as the McAllister House. The house was said to be cursed, its history shrouded in darkness that had persisted for generations. The story dates back to the early 1800s when the McAllister family first moved to Willowbrook from Scotland. They were reclusive and seldom seen by the townsfolk. The whispers in the local tavern suggested that the McAllisters dabbled in the occult, conducting eerie rituals in the depths of the night. One stormy evening in 1842, a group of curious townspeople gathered outside the mansion, drawn by strange, otherworldly chants and flickering candlelight. Among them were Sarah and William Turner, a young couple deeply in love. As the clock struck midnight, the McAllister house was suddenly ablaze with an eerie green light, and the ground shook as though the earth itself was in torment. The gathered crowd watched in terror as the mansion's windows rattled, and an unnatural, chilling wind swept through the trees. Then, a deafening silence fell over the mansion, only to be broken by a bone-chilling scream. It was Sarah Turner, who had ventured too close to the mansion in her curiosity. Her cry pierced the night, but before anyone could react, she was gone, swallowed by the inky darkness that enveloped the house. The next morning, the townsfolk searched for Sarah, but there was no sign of her. The McAllister house stood in eerie silence, as if it had never been disturbed. The incident was the talk of Willowbrook for weeks, and soon, tales of the cursed mansion spread beyond the town's borders. Over the years, the McAllister house continued to stand, its windows perpetually darkened, and whispers of strange happenings persisted. Locals claimed to hear Sarah's voice echoing on the wind, calling for help from within the mansion's depths. To this day, the McAllister house remains a chilling reminder of the unknown. Those brave enough to venture near the mansion at night still report hearing the faint whispers in the dark and feeling an icy hand brushing against their skin. Willowbrook, once a peaceful town, remains haunted by the terrifying tales of the unknown that surround the cursed McAllister house. Story 2. In the small town of Ravenswood, nestled in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, there stood an old, weather-worn inn known as the Whispering Pines Inn. Its history stretched back to the early 19th century, and with that history came tales of inexplicable hauntings that would chill the bravest of souls. The story takes us to a chilly October night in 1923 when a young couple, John and Emily Anderson, decided to spend their honeymoon at the Whispering Pines Inn. The inn, with its creaky wooden floors and dimly lit hallways, had a certain rustic charm that drew visitors from miles around. However, its charm hid a dark secret. On the third night of their stay, the Andersons were woken by a soft, mournful wail that seemed to emanate from the inn's ancient walls. At first, they dismissed it as the wind or a figment of their imagination. But the wail persisted, growing louder and more distinct. As John and Emily followed the haunting sound, it led them to room 214, a room they had previously avoided due to its sinister reputation. The door to the room stood ajar, and inside, they found an old rocking chair moving by itself, its creaking rhythm matching the mournful wail that filled the air. Suddenly, a figure materialized in the dimly lit room, a woman in a tattered wedding gown, her face veiled in sorrow. She reached out her spectral hand, her eyes filled with an unspoken longing. Emily gasped, recognizing the face of a young bride, a ghostly echo of a past tragedy. It was said that many years ago, a bride named Abigail had stayed at the Whispering Pines Inn on her wedding night. Tragically, her groom had never arrived, leaving her heartbroken and alone. Abigail's spirit, it seemed, had lingered in the inn ever since, eternally awaiting her lost love. The Andersons, terrified but compassionate, left the room and reported their ghostly encounter to the inn's owner, Mr. Jenkins. He nodded solemnly, acknowledging that room 214 had a history of such spectral sightings. As the years passed, the legend of Abigail's ghost became intertwined with the lore of the Whispering Pines Inn. Visitors from far and wide came seeking the thrill of encountering her ghostly presence. And though many came to the inn for the tales of haunted rooms, it was Abigail's story, a real ghost story that chilled the soul, that left a lasting mark on Ravenswood and the Whispering Pines and for generations to come. Story 3. In the heart of New Orleans, within the vibrant French Quarter, there was an antique shop called La Maison Maudite, the Cursed House. It was a place known to locals as a repository of dark and enigmatic artifacts, objects that carried with them a sinister history of curses and misfortune. Among the many cursed objects housed within the dimly lit store was a particularly malevolent item, an ornate, tarnished mirror with an intricately carved frame adorned with grotesque faces. Its glass seemed to hold an eerie, ever-shifting fog, and its presence unsettled anyone who gazed into it. The mirror's story traced back to the early 1900s when it was owned by a wealthy socialite named Evelyn Sinclair. Evelyn was known for her obsession with vanity, spending hours each day admiring herself in the mirror, convinced that it enhanced her beauty. But soon, the mirror's curse began to manifest. Over time, Evelyn's once striking beauty began to wither. Her once lustrous hair dulled, and her complexion turned sallow. Her friends and family watched in horror as she aged rapidly, as though life itself was being drained from her. Desperate and paranoid, Evelyn locked herself in her opulent mansion, never leaving the side of the cursed mirror. In her solitude, she descended into madness, believing that the grotesque faces within the mirror whispered secrets to her in the dead of night. Her cries and pleas for release echoed through the empty halls, chilling those who ventured near. One fateful night, a close friend, Victoria, came to visit Evelyn, concerned for her well-being. She discovered Evelyn's frail, emaciated form in front of the mirror, her eyes vacant and her once elegant gown now tattered. Victoria tried to pull her away from the mirror, but Evelyn resisted with a strength that defied her fragile appearance. In a final, desperate act, Victoria smashed the cursed mirror with a heavy candlestick. As the glass shattered, a bone-chilling wail filled the room, and a dark, swirling mist enveloped Evelyn. When the mist cleared, both Evelyn and the mirror had vanished without a trace. The legend of the cursed mirror persisted over the years, as it changed hands from one unwitting owner to the next. Each new owner faced their own nightmarish ordeals, as the mirror seemed to exact its revenge for being shattered. La Maison Maudite became a place of fascination and dread, a testament to the horrors that cursed objects could unleash. And the cursed mirror, with its ever-changing fog and grotesque faces, served as a chilling reminder that some objects carried with them a malevolent power that could not be easily escaped or understood. Story 4. In the quiet suburban neighborhood of Willowbrook, nestled beneath the cover of towering oak trees, there existed a house known only as the Haunted Residence. Its history was steeped in darkness, and the tale of its sinister occupant, the Shadow Man, had become the stuff of local legend. The first documented encounter with the Shadow Man occurred in the mid-20th century. A young couple, Robert and Eleanor Thompson, had just moved into the residence with their 2 children, Sarah and David. At first, the family experienced nothing out of the ordinary, but that tranquility was short-lived. One moonless night, Robert was awakened by an eerie presence in the room. The temperature plummeted, and an overwhelming sense of dread washed over him. As he blinked into the darkness, he saw it, a tall, shadowy figure with piercing, crimson eyes. It stood at the foot of the bed, its elongated limbs casting an otherworldly silhouette. Terrified and unable to move, Robert watched as the Shadow Man's elongated fingers reached out, stretching impossibly toward him. He could feel the icy touch, like a vice grip around his heart. In the blink of an eye, the apparition vanished, leaving Robert drenched in sweat and trembling. Over the years, the Thompson family endured countless encounters with the Shadow Man. Eleanor saw the figure lurking in the hallway, and the children whispered tales of a dark, faceless entity that visited them in their nightmares. The once happy household descended into chaos as the malevolent entity tormented them relentlessly. Desperate for answers, the family sought the help of paranormal investigators and mediums. The house became a hub of seances, EVP recordings, and attempts to communicate with the Shadow Man. Each effort seemed to agitate the entity, intensifying its malevolence. As the years passed, the Shadow Man's presence grew more oppressive, and the Thompsons' pleas for help went unanswered. They eventually abandoned the haunted residence, leaving it to rot in eerie solitude. The legend of the Shadow Man persisted, drawing countless paranormal enthusiasts and thrill-seekers to Willowbrook. Some claim to have encountered the entity, while others left with chilling tales of inexplicable phenomena. The Shadow Man Chronicles, Encounters with the Paranormal, serves as a chilling record of the malevolent entity that plagued the Thompson family and continues to haunt the haunted residence in Willowbrook. It is a testament to the unexplained mysteries of the paranormal world and the enduring terror of the Shadow Man. Story 5. In a quaint suburban neighborhood known as Pleasantville, nestled beneath the canopy of towering oak trees and picket fence homes, there resided a house that stood as a testament to the paranormal. It was here, at 45 Maple Street, that a series of true tales unfolded, revealing the harrowing experiences of those who lived next door to malevolent spirits. One chilling account dates back to the early 1990s when the Johnson family, comprising parents Richard and Lisa and their 2 children, moved into the cozy house at 47 Maple Street, right next to the dreaded residence at 45. Initially, their new neighbors, the Andersons, seemed friendly and welcoming. But as the weeks passed, strange occurrences began to plague the Johnsons. Late at night, the Johnsons would hear odd noises emanating from the adjoining wall, muffled footsteps, whispered conversations, and eerie laughter that sent shivers down their spines. Their children, Emily and Alex, claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving behind the curtains of the Andersons' home, figures that should not have been there. One fateful evening, Lisa was alone in her kitchen, glancing out the window into the Andersons' backyard. She froze as she witnessed a pale, ethereal face staring back at her from the darkness. The eyes were vacant, the features distorted, and it was clear that this was no living being. Terrified, Lisa confided in Richard, and together, they began to investigate the history of their neighbors. It turned out that the Andersons had lived in that house for generations, and tales of their association with the occult and unexplained phenomena had long been whispered in Pleasantville. The Johnsons, determined to protect their family, reached out to paranormal investigators. Together, they uncovered a dark history of the Andersons' involvement in sinister rituals and the summoning of malevolent spirits. It was these restless entities that now tormented not only the Andersons but their unfortunate neighbors as well. As the Johnsons delved deeper into the mystery, they discovered that the malevolent spirits next door were bound to the house, seeking to spread fear and despair. The vow to cleanse their home and rid themselves of these nightmare neighbors would test their resolve and faith in the face of unimaginable terror. Nightmare Neighbors, True Stories of Malevolent Spirits Next Door recounts the chilling experiences of the Johnson family and others who found themselves living beside malevolent spirits, reminding us that the line between the living and the supernatural can sometimes blur when malevolent entities become your closest neighbors. Story 6. Deep within the heart of the vast and untouched wilderness of Pinecrest National Park, there existed a place shrouded in mystery, the Whispering Woods. This remote, untamed forest was the setting for countless tales of unexplained phenomena and eerie encounters, perfect material for the creepiest campfire tales. One such tale harks back to the late 1970s when a group of adventurous friends embarked on a camping trip deep within the Whispering Woods. Among them were Sarah, Mark, and Ben, all in search of adventure and a thrill that only the wild could provide. On their second night, as they sat around a crackling campfire beneath a blanket of stars, Mark began to spin a tale he'd heard from the park rangers about a spectral figure known as the Whispering Wanderer. According to legend, the Whispering Wanderer was a tormented soul, forever lost in the woods, condemned to roam and whisper chilling messages to those who ventured too close. As Mark's tale reached its climax, a sudden gust of wind rustled the leaves overhead, sending a shiver down everyone's spine. Sarah laughed it off, dismissing it as a mere coincidence. But then, the whispering began, a soft, ghostly murmur that seemed to emanate from the very trees themselves. They froze in terror, listening as the whispers grew louder, almost as if the forest itself was speaking to them. The words were indistinct, as though carried on the wind, and the trio couldn't decipher their meaning. Panic set in as they realized that they were not alone in the whispering woods. Frantic, they grabbed their flashlights and scanned the darkness, their beams revealing fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures darting among the trees. The whispering wanderer, it seemed, was real, and it was drawing closer. In their haste to escape, they stumbled upon an ancient, overgrown trail that they hadn't noticed before. Desperate to evade the ghostly pursuer, they followed the path deeper into the woods, far from their campsite. Hours later, they emerged from the whispering woods, exhausted and terrified. They had escaped the clutches of the whispering wanderer, but the memory of that night haunted them for years to come. Creepy campfire tales, haunting stories from the wilderness chronicle stories like this one, tales of chilling encounters in the untamed wilderness, where the line between the natural and the supernatural becomes blurred. These tales serve as a reminder that sometimes, when you venture too deep into the heart of the wilderness, you may find yourself in the company of entities that defy explanation. Story 7. In the quiet suburban town of Ravenswood, nestled amidst tree-lined streets and well-kept gardens, there existed a seemingly ordinary house with an extraordinary and terrifying history. It was a place that would become the focal point of true accounts of demonic infestations that shook the very foundations of belief. The story dates back to the early 1980s when the Harrison family, consisting of parents Michael and Julia and their teenage daughter Emily, moved into the unassuming house at 27 Elmwood Avenue. At first, life in their new home was idyllic, but it didn't take long for the first signs of the demonic presence to manifest. It began with whispers, soft, malevolent voices that echoed through the halls in the dead of night. The Harrisons would wake up to the chilling sensation of unseen hands brushing against their skin and cold gusts of air that seemed to emanate from nowhere. As the days passed, the occurrences escalated. Emily, the youngest member of the family, was the most affected. She would wake up in the middle of the night, her eyes vacant, speaking in a language unknown to her family, her voice distorted and guttural. Her once bright eyes now bore a sinister emptiness, and her behavior became increasingly erratic. Terrified, the Harrisons sought the help of priests, paranormal investigators, and psychologists, but none could explain the bizarre and malevolent forces at play within their home. Crucifixes were torn from the walls, religious relics desecrated, and even the holy water seemingly lost its sanctity in the presence of this demonic infestation. As the Harrison family grappled with the horrors unfolding within their home, their neighbors began to notice strange phenomena as well. Unearthly screams and haunting laughter would emanate from 27 Elmwood Avenue, sending shivers down the spines of anyone who dared to draw near. It wasn't until the intervention of a renowned exorcist that the true nature of the infestation became clear. The demon that had taken hold of the house was cunning, powerful, and malevolent beyond measure. The exorcism that followed would test the faith and courage of all involved and would serve as a chilling account of the demonic forces that can infest the most unsuspecting places. Possessed, True Accounts of Demonic Infestations reveals the chilling true stories of individuals and families who have come face to face with the darkest forces of the supernatural. These accounts serve as a haunting reminder that sometimes evil can manifest in the most unexpected of places, tearing apart the lives of those unfortunate enough to cross its path. Story 8. In the heart of the historic town of Ravenswood, nestled along the banks of the mist-shrouded river, there was a collection of centuries-old buildings known as the Ravenswood Heritage Village. Among these relics of the past, tales of real-life meetings with the supernatural abounded, making it a place of eerie encounters. One of the most chilling stories dates back to the late 1800s when a young woman named Abigail Sinclair arrived in Ravenswood to work as a governess for the wealthy Hawthorne family. The Hawthorne estate, a sprawling mansion on the outskirts of town, had a reputation for being haunted, but Abigail was undeterred by the tales of apparitions and unexplained phenomena. Shortly after her arrival, Abigail began experiencing inexplicable occurrences. She would hear the mournful wailing of a woman's voice echoing through the mansion's empty hallways at night. Doors would slam shut on their own, and the temperature in certain rooms would drop drastically, even on the warmest summer days. One evening, as Abigail sat in the parlor, a figure materialized before her, a young woman in a tattered wedding gown, her hair disheveled and her eyes filled with sorrow. She reached out to Abigail, her hand ice cold to the touch, and Abigail could feel an overwhelming sense of despair radiating from her. The apparition identified herself as Eleanor, a bride who had tragically died on her wedding day in the late 1700s. She had been promised to a man she did not love, and her heartache had bound her spirit to the mansion for centuries. Abigail, determined to help Eleanor find peace, began researching the history of the Hawthorne estate and its tragic past. Through painstaking effort, she discovered the truth about Eleanor's untimely death and the heartbreak that had tethered her to the mansion. With the help of a local psychic, Abigail conducted a seance to communicate with Eleanor's spirit. Through a series of chilling messages, they helped Eleanor find closure and release her from her earthly torment. Eerie encounters, real-life meetings with the supernatural chronicle stories like Abigail's, true accounts of individuals who have come face to face with the supernatural in the most unexpected of places. These eerie encounters serve as a testament to the enduring mysteries of the spirit world and the courage of those who seek to understand and confront the unknown. Story 9. In the heart of the bustling metropolis known as Metroville, where towering skyscrapers reached for the heavens and neon lights painted the streets in vibrant hues, there existed a shadowy underbelly of whispered tales and urban legends. These myths, passed down from one generation to the next, held the power to chill the hearts of even the most skeptical residents. One of the most enduring urban legends in Metroville revolved around an abandoned subway station buried beneath layers of concrete and forgotten history. According to the myth, this station, known as the Ghostly Express, was haunted by the spirits of passengers who had met a gruesome fate on a fateful night in the early 1900s. As the story went, on that ill-fated night, a subway train packed with commuters had mysteriously derailed, plunging into the darkness of the abandoned station. The passengers were trapped, their cries for help echoing through the tunnels as they awaited rescue that would never come. The station was sealed off, the incident hushed up, and the victims forgotten by all but the urban legend that persisted. But urban legends uncovered, the truth behind the myths delves deeper, shining a light on the hidden truths of Metroville's haunted subway. In reality, the incident did occur, and the victims' families had fought for justice and recognition for decades. Archival records and interviews with descendants of survivors revealed the harrowing details of that tragic night. The subway had indeed derailed, but it wasn't due to supernatural forces. Faulty brakes and poor maintenance had led to the catastrophe. The Ghostly Express, as it became known, was a poignant reminder of the human cost of negligence. Over the years, the myth had grown to include ghostly apparitions and supernatural occurrences, but the truth was far more chilling, a reminder that sometimes reality can be more terrifying than even the most enduring urban legends. Urban Legends Uncovered, the truth behind the myths delves into the mysteries and myths that lurk in the hidden corners of Metroville, shedding light on the often surprising truths that underlie these chilling tales. It is a testament to the power of urban legends to captivate the imagination and, at times, to obscure the reality that lies beneath. Story 10. In the heart of the picturesque town of Greenwood, nestled among cobblestone streets and centuries-old buildings, there stood a museum known as the Greenwood Historical Society. While it held artifacts and relics from the town's storied past, it also harbored a secret, a history haunted by the ghosts of those who had left their mark on the town. One of the most chilling stories tied to the museum centered around an ancient portrait known simply as the Lady in Blue. The painting depicted a noble woman in a resplendent blue gown, her eyes bearing a sadness that seemed to transcend the centuries. According to legend, the Lady in Blue was the ghost of Lady Elizabeth Hawthorne, a prominent figure in Greenwood's history during the 18th century. Lady Elizabeth had been a patron of the arts and sciences, known for her philanthropy and unwavering dedication to the town. But her life had taken a tragic turn when her beloved son, William, was accused of a crime he did not commit and sentenced to hang. In her despair, Lady Elizabeth had made a pact with dark forces, seeking to free her son from the gallows. The pact had dire consequences, resulting in her own untimely death and the eternal haunting of her portrait. Visitors to the Greenwood Historical Society reported eerie encounters with the Lady in Blue. Some claimed to have heard her weeping in the dead of night, while others spoke of her ghostly figure moving within the confines of the museum, her eyes following their every move. The haunting of history, Ghosts from the Past, delves into stories like that of Lady Elizabeth Hawthorne, true accounts of restless spirits who continue to haunt the annals of time. These tales serve as a haunting reminder that the past is not always buried in the pages of history but can emerge to shape the present and remind us that some ghosts are destined to linger far beyond their time. Story 11. In the tranquil village of Millbrook, nestled in the rolling hills of the English countryside, there existed a centuries-old stone cottage that held a profound secret, a portal to the afterlife. It was here, within the weathered walls of the cottage, that the living received messages from the deceased, forging a mysterious connection between two worlds. The story begins in the late 19th century when the cottage was inhabited by the Wallace family, Samuel, Eleanor, and their young daughter, Eliza. Samuel, an amateur inventor and spiritualist, had spent years perfecting a peculiar contraption, a device he believed could bridge the gap between the living and the dead. One chilling winter's night, as a thick fog settled over Millbrook, Samuel activated his invention, a mesmerizing combination of copper wires, glass bulbs, and arcane symbols. To his astonishment, the room was bathed in an ethereal light, and the air was filled with the soft, melodic whispers of voices long gone. As the minutes passed, the voice of Eleanor's late mother, Margaret, emerged from the spectral chorus. Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes as she heard her mother's familiar tone and felt her presence once more. Margaret conveyed messages of love and guidance, easing the grief that had weighed heavily on Eleanor's heart since her passing. Word of the miraculous device spread throughout the village, and soon, people from all walks of life came to the cottage seeking solace and connection with their departed loved ones. Each encounter was a profound and emotional experience, as messages from the deceased provided comfort and closure to the grieving. However, as time passed, the nature of the messages began to change. Samuel's invention, once a conduit for love and reassurance, started to relay warnings and cryptic prophecies. Villagers reported hearing unsettling voices that spoke of impending doom and an otherworldly presence that seemed malevolent. Beyond the grave, messages from the deceased delves into the enigmatic phenomenon that unfolded within the walls of the Wallace cottage, a true account of communication with the afterlife that evolved from heartwarming reunions to chilling messages that defied explanation. It serves as a reminder that the boundaries between life and death can blur in ways both comforting and disquieting, and that the mysteries of the hereafter are far from being fully understood. Story 12. In the quaint town of Ravenswood, nestled amidst rolling hills and centuries-old oak trees, there existed a peculiar and unsettling collection, an assortment of dolls that had, over the years, become infamous for their eerie and malevolent influence. These sinister playthings held stories that defied explanation and chilled the hearts of those who encountered them. One such doll, known simply as the Haunted Heirloom, belonged to the Morgan family, who had resided in a grand Victorian mansion for generations. The doll, a porcelain figure with lifeless eyes and a cracked visage, had been passed down through the family for centuries. The doll's curse dated back to the early 1800s when the Morgan family's matriarch, Abigail, had been wronged by a jealous rival, Eliza. In a fit of rage, Abigail had sought the aid of a sinister witch, who cursed a beloved family heirloom, a porcelain doll that had been cherished for generations. As the years passed, the doll's malevolent influence became evident. Those who came into contact with it experienced an overwhelming sense of dread and despair. Family members reported hearing eerie giggles in the dead of night and glimpses of the doll moving on its own. But it wasn't until the 1940s, during a particularly violent thunderstorm, that the doll's curse reached its peak. Lightning struck the mansion, causing a fire that engulfed the upper floors. The doll, seemingly unscathed by the flames, was discovered in the charred remains of the family's nursery, where it had stood for decades. In the aftermath, the Morgan family fled the mansion, leaving the haunted heirloom behind. The doll remained a malevolent presence, its unsettling laughter echoing through the abandoned halls. Curse of the Doll, sinister playthings and their stories delves into the dark history of dolls like the haunted heirloom, recounting tales of cursed playthings that have left a trail of fear and despair in their wake. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that the innocence of childhood play can sometimes give way to sinister forces that defy explanation and cast a long shadow over the lives of those who encounter them. Story 14. In the remote, rugged wilderness of Whispering Pines National Park, a place of serene beauty and ancient mysteries, there existed a series of unsettling stories, a series of unexplained disappearances that left investigators baffled and the residents of nearby towns gripped by fear and superstition. One of the most chilling cases dates back to the mid-20th century when a group of seasoned hikers embarked on a trek deep into the heart of Whispering Pines. Among them were John and Sarah Turner, a couple known for their love of the outdoors and their years of experience in the wilderness. As they ventured further into the dense forest, a heavy silence settled over the group. The trees seemed to loom closer, their branches interlocking to form an impenetrable canopy. The air grew colder, and an unsettling feeling of being watched descended upon them. It was on the third day of their expedition that the group made a shocking discovery, an ancient, overgrown trail, hidden from view by centuries of encroaching foliage. The trail seemed to beckon them, and against their better judgment, they decided to follow it deeper into the wilderness. As they ventured further, the air grew thicker with an inexplicable tension. Whispers, faint and ethereal, danced on the wind, and shadows darted among the trees. It wasn't long before they realized they were not alone. One by one, members of the group began to vanish without a trace. First, it was Sarah, who simply vanished as they rounded a bend in the trail. Then, the others followed, disappearing into thin air, leaving no footprints, no trace of their presence. John, the sole survivor, stumbled upon an old, withered journal hidden beneath a moss-covered rock. It spoke of the ancient trail, its connection to the Whispering Pines, and a malevolent force that dwelled within the woods. The journal's author, a long-lost hiker, had left behind a warning, but it was too late for John and his friends. Unexplained disappearances, vanished without a trace, delves into stories like John's, a haunting record of those who have ventured into the wilderness only to vanish into the unknown. These tales serve as a chilling reminder that the mysteries of the untamed wilderness can sometimes conceal forces that defy explanation and leave a trail of unanswered questions in their wake. Story 15. In the peaceful suburban neighborhood of Willowbrook, nestled beneath the shade of towering elm trees, there stood a charming Victorian house that belied the sinister secrets it held within its walls. It was here, at 13 Elm Street, that a family's tranquil life would be forever shattered by a series of terrifying and unexplained events. The story begins in the late 1990s when the Johnson family, consisting of parents David and Emily and their two young children, Sarah and Michael, moved into the picturesque house on Elm Street. At first, it seemed like a dream come true, a spacious home with a white picket fence, a perfect place to raise a family. However, it didn't take long for strange occurrences to disrupt their idyllic life. It started innocently enough, objects moved on their own, and faint whispers echoed through the halls in the middle of the night. Emily brushed these events off as mere coincidences, but soon they escalated into something far more sinister. One evening, as the family sat down for dinner, the lights flickered and dimmed. The temperature in the room plummeted, and a sense of dread settled over them. Then, inexplicably, the dining room table lifted off the floor and crashed back down, sending dishes and cutlery flying. Terrified and bewildered, the Johnsons sought the help of paranormal investigators who conducted extensive research into the history of the house. What they discovered sent shivers down their spines. The house had a dark past, marred by a series of tragic events and unexplained deaths. It was revealed that a century earlier, the house had been the residence of a reclusive woman named Agnes Hartley, rumored to have dabbled in the occult. Legend had it that Agnes had made a pact with dark forces, seeking power and immortality, and that her malevolent spirit still lingered within the house, tormenting anyone who dared to reside there. As the Johnsons delved deeper into the history of their home, they uncovered a series of unsettling clues that seemed to point to Agnes's malevolent influence. A hidden room beneath the basement, filled with occult symbols and ancient tomes, served as a chilling testament to the house's dark history. The House on Elm Street, a family's terrifying ordeal, is a harrowing account of the Johnsons' nightmarish experiences in their seemingly perfect home. It serves as a reminder that even the most charming facades can hide the darkest secrets, and that some houses bear a malevolent legacy that can haunt those who dwell within their walls. Story 16. In the bustling city of Havenridge, where the pace of life matched the beat of its skyscrapers, there existed a series of chilling tales, a collection of encounters with doppelgangers, sinister doubles that cast shadows over the lives of those who crossed their path. One of the most unsettling stories unfolded in the late 1980s when a woman named Olivia Bennett, a renowned architect, began to notice peculiar occurrences in her life. It started innocently enough, a glimpse of herself in a mirror, standing in a room she had never entered, wearing a malevolent grin. But it didn't end there. Olivia's friends and colleagues began to mention her bizarre behavior. They claimed to have seen her in places she couldn't possibly have been, engaging in acts of cruelty and malice that were entirely out of character. It was as if her very essence had been replaced by a malevolent doppelganger. Terrified and desperate for answers, Olivia turned to a team of paranormal investigators who uncovered a dark and perplexing truth: the existence of a malevolent twin, a doppelganger that had crossed over from a parallel world, intent on wreaking havoc in Olivia's life. As the investigators delved deeper into the mystery, they discovered that the malevolent twin had originated from a parallel dimension where Olivia's life had taken a much darker path. In that world, she had become a ruthless and vengeful figure, and her doppelganger sought to merge their realities, bringing chaos and darkness into Olivia's world. Dreadful doppelgangers, encounters with evil twins explore stories like Olivia's, accounts of individuals who have encountered their sinister doubles from parallel dimensions, doubles driven by malevolence and a desire to disrupt their lives. These chilling tales serve as a haunting reminder that sometimes the line between our reality and alternate dimensions can blur, leading to encounters with doppelgangers that bring terror and turmoil in their wake. Story 17. Deep within the heart of the tranquil countryside, there lay a forest like no other, the Wailing Forest. This dense, enchanted woods was shrouded in an air of mystique, its secrets and mysteries known to only a few brave souls who had ventured within. One of the most enduring enigmas of the Wailing Forest was the legend of the Whispering Grove. It was said that within this secluded part of the woods, the trees whispered secrets, their leaves rustling with eerie, ghostly voices that spoke of forgotten tales and long-lost knowledge. The story of the Whispering Grove dated back centuries, to a time when a group of ancient druids had conducted rituals and ceremonies among the trees. They believed that the forest was a bridge between the realms of the living and the spirit world, and it was within the Whispering Grove that they sought communion with the other side. As time passed, the druids' knowledge and rituals were lost to the annals of history, but the enchantment of the Whispering Grove endured. Visitors to the Wailing Forest reported hearing the ghostly whispers of the trees, their words unintelligible yet hauntingly compelling. In the 1930s, a group of intrepid explorers embarked on an expedition to uncover the truth behind the legend. Among them was Sarah Mitchell, a fearless researcher with a passion for unraveling mysteries. Armed with recording devices and cameras, they ventured deep into the Wailing Forest. As they reached the Whispering Grove, the air grew colder and the shadows deepened. The trees seemed to close in on them, their branches forming an intricate web of secrets. It was then that the whispers began, soft, haunting, and filled with ancient knowledge. Sarah and her team recorded the whispers, hoping to decipher their meaning. As they listened, they became aware of a presence, a spectral figure among the trees, watching them with hollow eyes. It was the ghost of a long-forgotten druid, seeking to convey a message from the other side. Through their research and analysis, Sarah and her team unraveled the druid's message, an ancient prophecy that spoke of a great cataclysm and the need to preserve the balance between the realms. The Whispering Grove, it seemed, held the key to understanding the forest's mystical connection to the spirit world. The Wailing Forest, Mysteries of the Enchanted Woods delves into stories like Sarah's, an exploration of the enigmatic and mystical qualities of the Wailing Forest, where the natural world and the supernatural converge. It serves as a testament to the enduring allure of ancient woods and the secrets they hold, waiting to be discovered by those who dare to enter their depths. Story 18. In the shadow of a centuries-old church, nestled among ancient oak trees and crumbling tombstones, there existed a cemetery unlike any other, the dreaded Rest Haven Cemetery. This burial ground was known far and wide for the eerie legends and chilling curses that clung to its unholy ground. The story of Rest Haven Cemetery was steeped in darkness, dating back to the early 19th century when the town of Ravenswood was founded. The cemetery had been established on land believed to be cursed by a vengeful spirit, a malevolent force that had sought to punish the town's founders for their transgressions. One of the most enduring legends surrounding Rest Haven Cemetery was the curse of the unforgiven souls. It was said that those buried within its cursed grounds were doomed to restless torment, their spirits trapped in a perpetual state of anguish. Their mournful cries could be heard on moonless nights, as they wept for the peace they had been denied. The legend took a particularly sinister turn when it was rumored that anyone who dared to disturb the resting place of the unforgiven souls would incur their wrath. Over the years, countless grave robbers and curiosity seekers had met gruesome and inexplicable fates after trespassing on the cemetery's cursed soil. In the late 1800s, a group of archaeologists ventured into Rest Haven Cemetery, determined to uncover the truth behind the legend. Armed with shovels and lanterns, they began to excavate the graves of the unforgiven souls. As they unearthed the skeletal remains, an eerie fog rolled in, obscuring their vision and filling the air with an otherworldly chill. Suddenly, the ground beneath them began to shake, and the unearthed skeletons rose from their graves, their empty sockets fixated on the intruders. The archaeologists fled in terror, leaving behind their tools and lanterns as they raced to escape the cursed cemetery. Unholy ground, cursed cemeteries and their haunting legends dives into tales like that of Rest Haven Cemetery, an exploration of the chilling curses and legends that surround burial grounds where the boundary between the living and the dead blurs. These stories serve as a haunting reminder that some places are forever marked by the past, and to disturb the peace of the departed can come at a grave price. Story 19. In the quiet town of Millbrook, nestled among rolling hills and quaint cottages, there existed a series of chilling accounts, an anthology of true stories that recounted encounters with malevolent entities, dark shadows that cast an eerie pall over the lives of those they targeted. One of the most terrifying tales unfolded in the late 1970s when a family named the Andersons moved into a centuries-old farmhouse on the outskirts of town. John and Mary Anderson, along with their young daughter, Emily, were initially captivated by the charm of their new home, but it didn't take long for them to realize that they were not alone. It began with subtle disturbances, a creaking floorboard in the middle of the night, whispers in the darkness, and fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures out of the corner of their eyes. The Andersons brushed these occurrences off as mere quirks of an old house until the manifestations escalated. One evening, as Emily was playing in her room, she began talking to an imaginary friend named Mr. Black. At first, her parents thought it was typical childhood imagination, but Emily's behavior soon grew more concerning. She spoke of Mr. Black as if he were real, describing him as a tall, shadowy figure that lurked in the corners of the house. As the weeks passed, The entity, now dubbed the Shadow Stalker by the Andersons, grew bolder. John and Mary would wake up to find themselves paralyzed in bed, unable to move as the malevolent presence drew near. They described the sensation of icy fingers tracing their skin and the overwhelming feeling of dread that accompanied its approach. Desperate for help, the Andersons reached out to paranormal investigators who conducted extensive research into the history of the farmhouse. It was revealed that the land had been the site of a tragic murder-suicide in the late 1800s, and the malevolent entity that now haunted the family had ties to that dark event. Stalked by shadows, True Stories of Malevolent Entities unveils stories like the Andersons, true accounts of individuals and families who have experienced relentless torment at the hands of shadowy, malevolent entities. These tales serve as a haunting reminder that sometimes the line between the living and the supernatural can blur when malevolent forces make their presence known. Story 20. In the decaying heart of a forgotten town, amidst the overgrown weeds and crumbling facades, there existed a series of bone-chilling stories, an anthology of true tales that recounted the harrowing histories of abandoned mental hospitals, places where the boundaries of sanity and terror blurred into a nightmarish tapestry of human suffering. One of the most haunting stories unfolded in the sprawling corridors of the Riverside Asylum, a once renowned institution that had stood for over a century. Its imposing structure, built in the 1800s, had been a place of refuge for those suffering from mental illness, but as time passed, it devolved into a chamber of horrors. In the late 1950s, as the world transitioned towards more modern approaches to mental health care, Riverside Asylum was left to decay, its doors permanently closed. But the echoes of the past lingered within its decaying walls. The tale begins with the arrival of a young nurse named Eleanor, who had been assigned to the asylum in its final days. Her heart brimming with compassion and a desire to help, she entered the asylum with noble intentions. However, what she encountered within those darkened halls was beyond her wildest nightmares. The patients, many of whom had been abandoned by their families and society, had been subjected to inhumane treatments and experiments. The asylum's staff, some driven to madness themselves, had become cruel wardens, more interested in perpetuating suffering than providing care. Eleanor, haunted by the anguished cries of the patients and the tormented spirits that seemed to linger in the shadows, began to uncover the asylum's dark secrets. She stumbled upon hidden files detailing the atrocities committed within its walls, from electroshock therapy to barbaric lobotomies. As she delved deeper, Eleanor felt a malevolent presence that seemed to feed on the pain and despair that permeated the asylum. Patients who had met tragic ends were said to wander the corridors, their agonized moans echoing through the abandoned halls. Horrors of the asylum, tales from abandoned mental hospitals reveal stories like Eleanor's, a haunting exploration of the grim histories of mental institutions that have fallen into decay, where the suffering of patients and the dark energy of the past continue to cast long, chilling shadows. These tales serve as a chilling reminder of the profound impact of human cruelty and the enduring presence of the supernatural in places of torment and despair. Story 21. In the stillness of the night, when the world slumbers and darkness shrouds the land, there exists a multitude of unsettling sounds, an array of unexplained noises that have left those who hear them haunted by their enigmatic origins. Screams in the Night unveils the eerie and unsettling stories behind these mysterious nocturnal disturbances. One of the most chilling tales in this anthology revolves around the forsaken village of Blackwood, nestled deep within a dense forest. The village had long been abandoned, its crumbling cottages and overgrown pathways serving as a chilling reminder of a forgotten past. But despite the village's desolation, eerie cries and anguished screams would pierce the night, sending shivers down the spines of anyone who ventured too close. These bone-chilling sounds were said to emanate from a decaying manor at the heart of Blackwood, a place where darkness had taken root. The story dates back to the 19th century when the manor had been inhabited by the enigmatic Blackwood family. The family had been known for their reclusive nature and their obsession with the occult. Rumors swirled that they had made a pact with sinister forces that had cursed the village. As the decades passed, the manor fell into disrepair, and its malevolent influence seemed to grow. Visitors to the village spoke of blood-curdling screams that echoed through the night, and some even claimed to have seen shadowy figures moving within the decaying structure. In the 1960s, a team of paranormal investigators ventured into Blackwood, determined to uncover the truth behind the screams. Armed with recording devices and cameras, they entered the manor, its ancient walls heavy with the weight of centuries of darkness. As they explored the forsaken halls, the investigators captured the harrowing sounds of the screams, their recordings revealing an eerie anguish chorus that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. It was as if the manor itself was trapped in an endless cycle of torment. Screams in the Night, Unexplained Noises and Their Origins delves into stories like that of Blackwood, a chilling exploration of the unexplained noises that haunt the night, raising questions about the supernatural forces that can manifest in the most unexpected of places. These tales serve as a haunting reminder that sometimes the darkest secrets are hidden in the symphony of the night, waiting to be uncovered by those who dare to listen. Story 22. In the glitz and glamour of Hollywood, where fame and fortune beckon like distant stars, there exists a series of spine-tingling tales, an anthology of ghostly encounters that have left celebrities of the silver screen and music industry grappling with the supernatural forces that haunt their lives. One of the most famous tales in this collection centers around the enigmatic actor Richard Blackwood, renowned for his brooding roles in classic horror films. Richard had always been drawn to the mysterious and the macabre, but he never expected that the shadows of his past would follow him into the present. The story begins during the filming of his breakout role in A Haunted Mansion. Richard was drawn to the eerie atmosphere of the set, a decrepit Victorian mansion rumored to be cursed. As he delved into his role, he couldn't help but immerse himself in the character, channeling the malevolent spirit he portrayed. It was during a particularly intense scene that something inexplicable occurred. As Richard delivered his lines, a frigid wind swept through the room, extinguishing all the candles. The crew stood frozen in shock, and Richard felt a chilling presence in the room, a presence that seemed to be watching him. After that day, strange occurrences plagued Richard's life. He would hear phantom footsteps in his home, encounter shadowy figures lurking in the corners of his vision, and feel an icy hand on his shoulder when no one was there. It was as if the malevolent spirit he had channeled on set had latched onto him. Desperate for answers, Richard turned to paranormal experts who conducted investigations into the supernatural forces that plagued him. Through seances and rituals, they uncovered the story of the mansion's original owner, a vengeful spirit named Amelia Grayson, who had been wronged in life and sought retribution in death. The Haunting of Hollywood, Celebrity Ghost Stories shares tales like Richard's, a glimpse into the lives of celebrities who have encountered the supernatural in the midst of their glamorous careers. These stories serve as a chilling reminder that fame and fortune do not shield one from the mysteries of the beyond, and that even the brightest stars can find themselves ensnared by the shadows of the paranormal. Story 23. Beneath the shimmering surface of the world's oceans, where sunlight struggles to penetrate the depths and the vast expanse remains largely uncharted, there exists a realm of chilling mysteries, an anthology of true tales that recount the terrifying encounters of those who have ventured into the unfathomable depths of the dark water. One of the most harrowing stories in this collection unfolds in the remote waters of the Bermuda Triangle, a region notorious for its inexplicable disappearances and paranormal phenomena. In the 1970s, a team of deep-sea divers, led by the intrepid explorer Dr. Sarah Thornton, embarked on a mission to unravel the mysteries that shrouded this enigmatic stretch of ocean. Their expedition began with the discovery of an ancient shipwreck, its timbers bearing strange, otherworldly carvings and symbols. The divers, armed with cutting-edge technology and a thirst for knowledge, descended into the abyss to investigate further. As they explored the sunken vessel, strange occurrences began to unfold. The water temperature plummeted, and the visibility deteriorated, leaving the divers in a chilling darkness. Unearthly sounds echoed through their communications equipment, whispers, eerie laughter, and ghostly voices that seemed to emanate from the very depths of the ocean. It was then that Dr. Thornton and her team encountered a colossal, shadowy figure, a creature of monstrous proportions with eyes that glowed like ancient embers. It seemed to materialize from the darkness, its presence exuding an aura of malevolence. The divers' equipment malfunctioned, and they were forced to flee, ascending to the surface in a panic. But the encounter with the underwater behemoth had left its mark. Dr. Thornton and her team began to experience disturbing nightmares and a sense of being pursued by an unseen force. As the years passed, the chilling tales of their expedition became legendary in the world of deep-sea exploration, with some suggesting that they had encountered a mythical sea monster that dwelled within the Bermuda Triangle's depths. Dark water secrets, terrifying tales from beneath the waves delves into stories like Dr. Thornton's, an exploration of the uncharted and the unexplained that lurk beneath the ocean's surface. These tales serve as a haunting reminder that the deep waters hold secrets beyond imagination, where the boundary between reality and the supernatural is blurred by the mysteries that lie in the abyss.